So, hello everyone. Very good evening and vanakkam. Thank you very much for joining our 14th InsightView series. It's a pleasure to welcome you all for this program. It is truly heartening to see a few familiar faces and new attendees alike. I am Balasubramanian, President of Advertising Club Metro and National Head for Digital. So, yeah, okay, we would like to also give you an update. Is actually on we have launched the Maddies 2024, which for which the nomination for entries got closed a week before, and we are happy to say that we have crossed 1,000 entries for a very first time, which is actually our highest number of entries, and we thank each and every one of you people and the rest of the fraternity for making this a grand success. And okay, so this program is actually okay. Our journey through InsightView series has been nothing short of inspiring, where we have brought in diversified kind of speakers, and this program is actually a classical example where for the very first time we brought an expert from the PR, where she talks about PR as a fast changing media and communication landscape. So hope you all enjoy the program. And I would like to introduce Mr. Suraj, who's secretary and co-founder for Digitally Inspired Media. Over to you, Suraj.
Thank you, Bala. A very good evening to everyone. Happy to see all of you back for our 14th InsightView series session. I'm very happy to introduce Sumathi Chari from PRHUB today, who will be our speaker for the evening. Let me, dive into introducing Sumathi already. Sumathi Chari, director and partner at PRHUB, a brand consultant and integrated communication specialist with close to 2 decades of experience. Sumathi works with senior leadership at organizations across diverse domains to help them devise their brand building strategy and execution roadmap. She has led winning campaigns across areas of communication, including PR, marketers among the top 50 women leaders in sales and marketing by the Vedica Women's Alliance in 2022, and more recently by Ad Gully for excellence in PR. Sumathi has also been part of the Emerging Leaders Committee at IPREX globally. He collaborated with agency leaders across regions to put together a holistic and unique curriculum for IPREX Academy, designed to enable agencies to future business leaders for the industry. In her role as director and senior partner at she steers the growth of the firm in a fast evolving communication landscape. With that, I welcome Sumathi on board for today's session. Over to you, Sumathi.
Thank you, Suraj. Thank you, Bala. Thank you for the opportunity to meet you all in present today. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining in on a Friday evening. We hope to make this interactive and interesting. Before I begin, am I audible? There was some
yes.
Clear?
No, I think Suraj had some network issue.
Okay. Great. Okay.
Oh, so, I'm sorry about that. I'll just
no. It's slight lag, but it was manageable. It was manageable.
No worries. Perfect. Okay, so I was told to speak about PR in a fraternity of largely, I think, ad professionals, but people from across communication streams. And today, any conversation about public relations is not standalone. We are talking in a very dynamic landscape, which has been changing and having kind of a paradigm shift the last few years, ever since the pandemic got over. So, before I begin, I like this quote because, the history of PR is actually a history of a battle for what is reality and how people will see and understand reality. It's by Stuart Levin. I just want to begin by a short introduction of how it all began for me personally, almost more than 20 years back now, actually. I always wanted to get into advertising and be a copywriter and client servicing. My mother was in the advertising industry, and so always thought, that's where I want to be. And it's by chance that, I started working at actually way back then at PRHUB, which was a newly just started up firm actually a solo entrepreneur by name Xavier, who founded the firm. And, people didn't know what was PR then, nor did I. We had to discover what it was, and it was largely just facilitation of providing press releases to media back home, and it continued for years and probably is true today in a different sense. When people ask, what is it that you really do? I think the word advertising is understood far better than what PR does and what we really do. And of course, we are in a phase today where the industry itself is going through a paradigm shift. And I think even within the industry, we are like wading through the changes and seeing where the future is and in which direction it's really evolving. So have tried to put some sense into what is a bit of a maze now, and I hope we can have more questions and answer it later once I finish the presentation. So just, something that all of us know and why we are talking about this overlap, like in the larger, as we talk about the convergence of marketing, technology, communication, the convergence of the three, there are a couple of things that are, overlapping. So when we talk about marketing, which is largely product pricing, promotion, the distribution, all of that coming into place. And then there's marketing communication, which means, the sales force and marketing channel communication, marcomm, trade shows, your packaging, direct marketing, sales promotion, etc. And then there comes advertising, public relations, events, all of these, which are specializations driven largely by agencies, and they work with companies to kind of complete their marketing and communication mix. Where PR, over the years, the industry has actually been working towards saying it's more than just press relations. It was always broader than that, because at its core, public relations is about storytelling. So which meant that the focus has always been on content weaving and narrative and building the narrative and building the brand story for them to be able to resonate with the audience, which meant that, whether it was media relations or whether we were looking at other tools, it could be speaker opportunities, it could be awards and rankings, it could be various forms of communication as the brand keeps growing, because the stakeholders for any organization and any brand is multiple at all points of time at various stages of growth. It is never a single, while at different phases, a certain audience, a customer audience could be more important at a certain stage, and investor audience could become very important when companies are going in for funding. Employer branding could become extremely critical as the company grows. But for any organization, targeting all these multiple stakeholders and building a brand in the long run, and not necessarily something that is short-term focused on marketing and sales, is like the real objective and goal. And therefore, it was corporate communications, media relations, speak opportunities, internal communication, and crisis communication. And, we are going to speak a lot more about the digital wave and all of that. But if you see the overlap here, the last few years, there's been a tradition, moving from traditional mass media advertising, even advertising is moved towards digital now. There's SEM, there's SEO, then there's email marketing. And then there's corporate branding and advertising and websites and the marketing collaterals, your social media pages, which again is the division of owned, earned, and paid media today. And these channels are beginning to overlap, and since content is becoming an extremely important component, and that's where integration is playing a larger role. So the goal of PR, and I've just tried to simplify this, for everyone who asks, what is really PR before we get into all the, industry jargons. It's basically you kind of play a large role in shaping the narrative of how people think about a company, a product, or a service, or a person. And it's about storytelling that resonates with a target audience and engages them in a dialogue. So in essence, that's what I was just explaining. It's basically building the narratives for us to be able to go and, talk the language that, your TG wants to hear from you, and be informed and be educated about a category probably that you are trying to build, and so on and so. A quick glance at India's PR market, and this is from a recent PRCI and industry body report of 22-23. So if you can see, India is, it's growing at a fast rate. Today, we have about a revenue share of 15% of the APAC market. The APAC market alone is about 13,600 crore, which is, about 8.5% of the global share. Markets like US and UK are far more developed markets when it comes to PR. India has still been a nascent industry. The entire APAC region has relatively been nascent compared to the West. And of course, like many other sectors, it's among the fastest growing markets in the last few years. And especially post-pandemic, I think India has seen a significant growth like in many other spaces, which is also because we are dependent on other sectors to, kind of grow. So we have been growing fast. It's still a meager 1% of the global share. The key APAC regions are China, India, Australia, Japan, and Russia. And of this, we have about a 15% share. The market size here is estimated about 2,100 crore. And, we have the North and the West, which have always been like large markets, Delhi or Mumbai, which are also large, the financial capital or the political capital of the country and large media hubs. But what is interesting in the last, if you see this report and the second graph that's put out here, the South today is the fastest growing market. So it has had about a 44% growth ever since in the last 4 to 5 years. Which is a significant, about 542 crores of, North still has 777 and West 672. And we expect this to be growing further. And that's the good thing. The industry report also talks about how today PR is gradually, at the CEO's table. So most corporate communication heads, about 8 of 10, directly report into the CEOs, and they are part of the boardroom tables to discuss the branding and devise the strategy and the narrative for the organization. Considering the larger market scenario, that brand building today is becoming extremely critical to business and business growth. Not that it wasn't ever in the past, and this is what we are going to talk about, just the media landscape today has almost made it mandatory for companies and firms of any size to be out there and to be communicating and building a distinct positioning and image for themselves. I'm going to continue. I can't obviously see any of you all, but at any point of time, if you want me to stop and intervene with any question, I'm more than happy to do so. But of course, at the end of the session, we do have a few minutes for Q&A.
Yeah, probably they can raise their hand and we can allow them to raise their questions too. Sure.
I'll continue until then, until you let me know. So this is just a quick overview of the market and how fast the industry is growing. What's really changing today, and what's the big question that we are talking about? And what I mentioned is, we continue to be in a phase well after 2 decades of defining what really is PR and what are we doing and where's the future moving. So there are a couple of things that have changed in the last few years. One is what we call the partial attention economy. And like it very much explains, the digital wave has meant a barrage of digital content and information. And unlike a few years back, and for those of us who are more used, who are the millennials or Gen X and not really Gen Z, we have grown up reading newspapers and consuming what was fed into us, right? So we get to find, you have a newspaper, you have content that's coming out to you, or you're watching a news channel and then there's news fed into you, and you're really, what's shifted is that today the receiver gets to actually find, choose, read. And the more you read of a particular kind of content, like all of us know, the algorithms ensure the more you get information on that specific topic. So, and last but not the least, all our consumption of content is on the go. There is no time to it, which means that, most of the content that we consume is on mobile devices, again, which feed us with more and more of what we keep reading. And this essentially, brings a big shift, because companies today are, they have the big question mark of who is really reading the content they put out there, and how well, how much they are reading that. Are they getting the right kind of messages out of that? The control of that bit of it has essentially become lower and lower over the last few years. And the consumer has truly become the king, because he or she not only gets to consume what they want, but also to contribute to that content. And I talk a little more about that. The growing models of message distribution, right? Or the channels and platforms of message distribution. Like we said, there's traditional, which is, I wouldn't say it's slowly dying. It's, a large part of it is dead in the West. India still is a unique demography, and, print is thriving. Has it become less over the last few years? Definitely yes, especially post-pandemic. Digital is growing and people do consume most of the things on the net. Having said that, both regional and English, print continues to exist. So there's print, and then there are a whole lot of new age platforms, whether it is OTT, whether it is platforms like Spotify and JioSaavn, and they've been like growing crazily, because people are just hooked onto this. And it's not true of just the metro. It's not an urban wave. It's spread, because considering we have the largest internet consuming population in the world, it's spread to tier 2, tier 3 and rural India. And we would be mistaken, and for most advertising professionals, right? Because we are used to defining our consumer demography and saying, okay, SECA, age group this, gender this, and this is likely to be their brand persona and their behavior, consumer purchase behavior. And most of us would have realized, most marketers would have realized the last few years, that this entire exercise has only become more complex and more difficult, because today to define your consumers, whether by age group or whether by disposable income, the lines are gradually blurring, because consumer behavior is rapidly changing. They talk about how 40s are the new 20s, and then there are the large brands the luxury brands would have traditionally believed that the urban India, with the Delhis and the Mumbais of the world, have the deepest pockets, and then they discovered that there is a whole hidden gold rush waiting for them in smaller tier 2 cities, whether it was a Ludhiana or a Coimbatore or a Tripur, and so on and so forth. So therefore, that the lines are blurring with the and then we are also globally exposed Indians today, where everything, whether we have traveled or not, we pretty much know what is happening around the globe, what are consumption trends, and so on and so forth. And so we are influenced by that as well. Technology, yes, the big animal in the room, AI, has, like it's being spoken about everywhere. Yes. Is it making inroads? Definitely yes. How far and how much, and the entire debate on how much it's going to displace in an industry that's people driven, and PR is largely people driven. It's a services business. So how much it's going to displace, continues to be a debate. But there are 3 or 4 key areas where where it's having a huge impact, where it's accelerating. And personally, my own opinion is that the human intervention, I belong to the school of thought that says that in a creative field like PR, where you have to bring in your strategy, your thinking, and your creative ideas to the fore first, and then execution becomes a different ball game altogether. But yes, AI with respect to content creation, with respect to just getting insights on consumer behavior insights, the data, which entire PR is today become a lot more data driven and analytics driven than it was in the past, with so much of content that is available to us, and all of the tools that are available, both paid as well as a number of platforms which are making this available to us. A lot of that piece has become easy, both the data research and the analytics of it, as well as the measurement to be able to track performance, and the analytics of what any campaign is providing. All of that is gradually becoming data driven. It's another fact that, of course, because we are a growing industry, the adoption of this still continues to remain gradual. So yes, all agencies across and all communication and marketing professionals are making that effort to adapt. It's becoming easier to adapt in areas like content, but again, there's a big question mark of if all our content was AI driven, then it could become easy for anyone to. And that's why I say I belong to the school of thought where there is a certain sense of strategy thinking, what goes into something. And like they say, the more intelligent you are with your AI search, then the better AI works for you. But that initial intelligence still needs to come from human intelligence. So that's the bit about data-driven insights and analytics and AI in technology for us. So these are like the big shifts. And what this has essentially meant is that for most of us who have been used to, of course, there's been a huge shift, I would say, definitely in the last decade itself, but even changing even more faster, that for any of us who are pushing content, whether it is through brochures and mailers and whatever we were doing through our marketing communication, that definitely is dead. Because you can, of course, today it is content that really pulls, and we'll talk about what pulls. But like I was saying, it is the consumer who has control over what he or she is consuming, what content he or she is consuming. And therefore brands are only trying to figure out whether it is with search engine optimization and keywords that we have to use, or whether it is with content marketing efforts that we put in. Overall, it is all about what the consumer is really liking to read, reading more of, watch, etc. And then we put out content that that resonates better with them. It's no longer about talking about our product, our service, who we are as a firm, and there are very few listeners and very less attention span for that. But what is it that really pulls? A couple of key things when we build content for clients, and that are key to the entire piece. One is storytelling. There is nothing like storytelling, because whether that is through anecdotes, whether that is through experiences that we share, keeping it, of course, like we said, the one is, of course, visual and video content and the taking over of that, but also keeping that as short as possible. And that's why you have this huge growth of reels and YouTube shorts that has happened in the last few years, because the attention span is so much shorter. Again, just another one small thing though in India, because anything we need to say with a caveat, right? We almost thought like books, the printed books are dead and Kindle is going to take over, and people are going to consume books only digitally. And then it's the reverse that's happened, and books are back. And of course there are audiobooks, but print is very much back when it comes to books. And similarly, we saw this trend a few years back when we said, people are only consuming videos and short form content. And then there was this huge surge in long form blogs and, a certain segment definitely reading longer form content and all of that. So podcasts recently, and I'll cover this a little more, and there are 2 to 3 hour podcasts, and there are listeners to this as well. So that's like with a bit of a caveat there. And last but not the least, anything that's of human interest. And we fake news is a completely different topic, and I've not touched upon that here too much. But higher social currency comes again with that risk of definitely content that's worth sharing more with friends. But then we have those issues like across communication streams on filtering out what is fake news. Second is creating value. So, when we talk about content that's creating value, basically is it, the questions to ask is it making your TG's life easier, more interesting? Are they going to find something new to out of that? Whether it is cookery-based content or fashion-based content or even B2B content, has taken a whole different form over the last few years, and the IT companies and the tech companies have been trying to simplify and humanize what they put out. Meaningful, in-depth communication, and of course, relevant to your consumers' needs and wants. These are the big questions to ask before you devise your entire messaging strategy for your PR and communication. We are in an era of what we would call mass customization. So the earlier piece of death of one message, fits all. It's like complete. There is no one message. One, we are living in an omni-channel media world. The media world is becoming universe is far more vast today. So therefore, we are not even sure we are going to touch. The touch points are going to necessarily reach out to our TG. That is one, but also personalization of communication. And we can see brands trying to do this to figure out the brand persona. So you get your WhatsApp messages, each time you visit or search for anything online, you are mapped as a consumer, your consumer behavior is mapped, and then, brands try to customize and tailor make their communication more and more for you based on your purchase behavior and your search behavior and your online behavior and so on. So the fourth one, of course, because the very fact that we have moved from monologues where companies and brands tend to put out their messages and communicate what they have to say to, a world where it's dialogues and engagement, and online there's far more like reviews and, it's become a two-way dialogue process today. So there is a shift from that top-down messaging to a more interconnected, democratized content. Of course, from a media perspective, it's, one, there is the fourth estate and journalism and media, which does have its own credibility. But again, there is citizen journalism, and we'll talk a little bit about the growth of influencers and all of that, but they're playing a huge role. So, which means content is a lot more democratized, and there is a growing dominance of user-generated content across sectors. So, a quick overview of the media landscape. Sorry, just give me a minute. Yeah. There's this huge shift that has probably accelerated a bit in India because of the pandemic, because overnight everyone was forced to go digital, whereas it could have probably happened a little more gradually if not for that. So a few broad trends out of that. One is the convergence. And when we say convergence, we mean the convergence of print, digital, online, offline. All of this, there is a convergence that has happened with media houses, with the way people consume content. And then there is digital media wave, of course, globalization of content, because anything that we do today is largely not, restricted to regions. And then there's mobile video and audio content, because most of the content that we have consumed is on the go. And people, of course, are reading and sharing more than ever before. The only question, like I mentioned, was, how much of that each brand kind of thinks, how much of what we are putting out is really getting. There are analytics that all the platforms provide in terms of reach and engagement and so on and so forth. With a lot of, like, for example, they just make it more and more difficult for brands. And all of us who are in the communication business know that whether it's YouTube or Google, the algorithms keep changing once every few months. So it just makes it a lot more complex for marketers to be out there and, spend less money to do anything actually. Social media takes center stage. So a huge shift in the way we consume content. Today, any content that we consume, news content, is first on Twitter, on our LinkedIn, our Instagram pages, and what people are sharing. It's not necessary. It's definitely not on newspapers, not on news channels, none of the traditional media, not even on the digital news portals. It's largely happens on social, and that's why most media houses have are spending a huge amount in building huge communities on their social pages, and kind of also commercializing and monetizing their social pages once they are able to reach that scale like most others do. I know I do see there are a few questions on the chat box and comments, but I'll just so that it doesn't disturb the flow with this, I'm just going to complete this and take that up. The next is, of course, social newsmakers. So, at least for PR professionals, this is like a huge shift, because today you are engaging the same journalists whom you probably were reaching out to. Many of them are newsmakers themselves. They have very large followings and a huge credibility on their social pages, and they use their social media pages pretty much as large channels of being able to communicate to their stakeholders, put out their stories, bring interesting content, and therefore it's become that much more interesting. There are a number of them, and in fact, some of them have a larger following than the pages of the media houses themselves, and they bring far higher credibility as well. And it also means that we kind of engage people more socially as well. Today it's very far and few that meetings are happening, whether it's one is virtual meetings, but also a lot of it is the engagement is beginning to happen socially. The growth of the creator economy. So today, the last estimate, and this has become like almost like a formal industry now. Just as we talk, we are talking about the number of content creators and influencers who are there at the Cannes, and keep aside the fact that whether they are paying to get there or something, but there is growing recognition for this community. It's become a lot more. There is some monetary structure to it. So we have about more than 20 lakh creators. The latest reports estimate that, and these include nano, micro, macro influencers who have found new relevance. Ranveer Alabhatia, who you see here on the slide, for the first time, you had government officials before they went out on their current election campaign and giving out interviews to all the large media houses. The first set of interviews by all the media houses happened on his particular podcast. Whether it is celebrities, whether it is businesses, startup entrepreneurs today, podcasts have become an important channel of communication for them to be able to reach out. For consumer brands, of course, Instagrammers, and there are a growing number of specialized influencers when it comes to food and fashion and so on, and entertainment and so on and so forth. So this is like a growing market that we are really seeing. There's a lot of commercialization that's happening. There are platforms today that allow you to connect with influencers who align with your brand values and so on and so forth. So this is a piece of the changing media landscape that is also impacting how PR leverages this community more actively. So we have about a current value of 1,275 crore, but if you see that graph, it's expected to grow at 25%, and to almost 2,800 crore over the next few years. That's just something that is picked from a report. So all of this has meant that the entire media landscape has changed significantly, because the stakeholders whom you're engaging today definitely has to change. It can't remain only the fourth estate and people who are into journalism, but also influencers and podcasters and all of that. Podcast India is the third largest podcast listening market. Whether it's the Spotify, JioSaavn, the audio streaming and podcast platforms have grown extensively, and today there are business podcasts, there are startup focused ones, there are a whole host of them. If we go to Spotify, many of them are plugging in content very creatively when it comes to brand content. So there's a lot happening in this space as it is in the OTT, and people are finding it a lot more easier to listen. So after China and US with about 60 million monthly listeners, we are estimated to be the third largest market. The other big trend is you see a whole lot of, whether it's Nikhil Kamath of Zerodha or Mukesh Bansal of Myntra, all of them are beginning to do podcasts as well. So, and they've been fairly successful with it, because there are a lot of, Shantanu of the Bombay Shaving Company. There are quite a few of entrepreneurs and startup heads who have also started their own podcasts, and companies are trying to put out their own podcasts as well. So it's becoming a very important channel of communication, and it's growing. Yeah, what does all of this mean? The big opportunity, have time. So the big opportunities are that we are gradually emerging as a think tank for brand communication, like I said, because to put together all these pieces, despite across the platforms, content is the single core, the narrative, the storytelling is the single core element to all of this. And, because we have, whether it was traditional media or digital, or social, the focus is on building those narratives. I think PR has always had an edge when it comes to building that, and that kind of has helped us grow. The 10% growth or the 13% growth in the last few years has also been a key element of that, and there is far more recognition for the industry, and it's growing faster today. Omni-channel is becoming a must, because no single brand touch point. Years back, you would say if you're a consumer brand, you can just advertise, and that FMCG, that's all you need to do, and that's more than enough. But today, that's no longer true. Whether you're a B2B or a B2C brand, you need to be there. And own media, of course, is allowing brands to control the narrative. There's brand journalism. Your own channels allow you to put out, like it's got control. You don't need to any longer wait for a media journalist to come and interview you, and the reverse has happened. So if you see, a lot of media journalists do pick up news from, whether it's Anand Mahindra's Twitter feeds or the quotes for their stories, all of that come from the social channels of individuals, or sometimes companies are putting out and announcing news on their social channels first. Zomato's, most of their stories get picked up from their social channels. It gets announced there. So, there's a lot of that convergence of owned, earned, paid, all of that that's happening. And last but not the least, online has definitely, the one big question for PR has always been measurement and the impact, and what it, the ROI question that we've always had to answer. And because it's the entire way it's structured is brand building for the long run and not necessarily sales for tomorrow or marketing for tomorrow. Just the digital thing has allowed us to provide a lot more analytics in terms of reach or engagement or the social media pages. And, if we do campaigns, what kind of, engagement it's got from media. The traditional visibility index, which we use for print, is of course something that is dying down. Continued to use for print, but needless to say, print media itself has digital versions today. So there's a lot more better and defined measurement metrics quantitatively. Qualitatively, of course, it's something that agencies are being forced to work on, because you need to go back to your messaging, your tone of voice, your share of voice, etc. So when we then ask what is really public relations today, and why I said, this is difficult to comprehend today, because we are in a moving space and there's lots that happening. And then, there are a set of skill sets that you do have, but then there are a whole lot of new age digital skill sets. So much like other industries, there's a lot of relearning and unlearning and skilling and upskilling that the industry is already beginning to do, but is going to be forced to do more and more of it in the time to come, because whether it's AI, usage of tools, and then ESG has become so important, which is also, PR is trying to play a role on how to communicate that more effectively. So visual and video content, influencer marketing, content marketing, I can see that we are probably running. I have one last slide and then we'll take up the question. What remains at the core of it? The power of storytelling and well-crafted narratives. The imperative of authenticity, these are things that don't change. And then that goes back to the first quote that I put out, because PR is meant to bring the most authentic side of companies, of individuals, products. And then, there's also this lens that we have had of spin doctors. I think with the growing, the way the media landscape is shaping, there's going to be less space for that. So it's going to make authenticity far more important than it was in the past. And the impact of human interactions and creative thinking, which I did cover. So yeah, I think this is the best way to end, that the price of doing the same old thing today is far higher than the price of change. So we are going through a change as an industry collectively, and there's a lot more action that's going to be happening, but there's a lot of opportunity as well in it. Yeah, I'm done. I could see Bala come online. So yes, that's happy to take questions.
Hi, thank you so much, Sumathi, for the session.
Thank you.
Sorry, I've been having a bit of a network issue with my internet. So yes, if there's any questions, please feel free to either you can raise your hand or drop in the questions, or even come on camera. We're harmless people. We'd like to see you all and have an interaction. Is there any query? We had some, I believe, from Mohammed. I had to log in from another system, so I've lost that chat. Mohammed, you can feel free to please ask the question anyways. You can mute yourself. Hi, good evening. Glad to see you on cam. It's great to see people and converse. You'll have to unmute yourself. Oh, Indra, can you unmute Mohammed's
Yes,
session, please?
can hand raise? I'm just.
Thank you.
Yes.
So good evening to one and all. So it's really a breaking session for us for the next level, thinking about how PR is going. So my question to ma'am was, how was the relationship between PR professional and journalist involved? What is the advantage for the digital marketing, digital media?
Okay, I'll answer the first bit. The relationship between PR professionals and journalists. This is like, yeah, so there's actually, let me put it this way. I think we are forced, as PR professionals, I think our knowledge of industries that our clients operate in, the market, as well as our client itself, needs to be more in depth and good at all points of time. And if you go with this basic homework and approach journalists, it's a good relationship, right? If we do not do that, then it's not necessarily a good one. We have moved definitely from an earlier time of when many of us began our careers to where media used to look down upon PR as you know, a little bit of a disturbance in the work that they are doing, and as just seen trying to push content that they want to put out on their clients, which they many a time saw as marketing content. And you know, editorially for journalists, there's always pride in putting out a story that they believe is not pushed through any kind of marketing. That's the difference between advertising and PR, right? That it's earned media. So a journalist has the right to do a story without any influence of a company trying to push for it. But over the years, and also because of the competitive media landscape, this has gradually changed, because many of the journalists do see, you know, and understand that there is a professional on the other side who's trying to make their job easier and provide a lot of the content that could make, you know, their stories more interesting or plug them in and connect them to the right people. So we do a lot of the, you know, groundwork before we, you know, the media journalists actually put out the story. So yes, it's. However, having said that, you know, a few of them not wanting to, you know, necessarily do too many PR stories or not entertaining too much of PR, and also because they have so many of them reaching out to them, it's not probably possible for them to be friendly and good and doing the stories all the time, which is the way it should be. So that's on the relationship bit. When you spoke about digital media, yeah, digital media is still a bit of an evolving space, at least for the traditional media houses that have gotten into digital and are trying to figure out digital. There's a lot more content going out there, but media again today is going through a churn like many other industries. They have attrition, so you know, the quality of talent in that industry is suffering as well. So you know, I wouldn't like to make it generic, but like our industry, the media industry too suffers from quality of talent and depth, and journalists who really know what they are writing and what they are wanting to do. So some of them tend to, you know, depend more on PR professionals to provide them the content.
Great. We have another question from Vasudha. Her question is, do we follow the same PR strategy for a budding startup?
Sorry, it's PR strategy for a budding startup.
Yes.
Okay, generic. So, okay, depending on startups is a huge space the last few years, and it depends on what stage of growth they are in, especially if they are going the typical cycle of you know, funding and raising funds, and investor audience becomes important. So we need to kind of assess. But let me, since you said a budding startup, I think the first steps would be to probably create brand awareness of what they provide, you know, and how they are different and what's their story and which segment they are catering to. If it's like a new category or sector, then probably there's the opportunity to build, you know, do a little bit of information and awareness building on that as well.
Sumathi, she has added an information. It is a digital marketing company. She had given that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So digital marketing is, of course, on the surge now. But again, there are a whole host of new companies there. So it's not going to be easy to differentiate what is particular digital marketing. And one of the key things is to find that story which, you know, sets a company apart. But so, you know, keeping that aside, I think, like I was saying, you know, building a narrative of their founding story, what they are doing, what kind of clients they are working with. We work with a client who is in the larger, you know, e-commerce content space. They create a lot of digital video, you know, they help these e-commerce put out content that helps people purchase more and more of what they put, what they're trying to sell. So we created, together with the clients, something very interesting, which they've also taken IP now on, called Shop Now Content. And over the last 2 years, we have kind of been working with them on building the profile of what is Shop Now Content. And as they, begun to work with larger brands and companies, we created stories out of, the case studies of them and how that's, bring in some data and analytics, because these companies also have a lot of data and analytics on how shoppers are shopping and, digital content that you have. So trying to look at analytics and trends out of that could be one way. Industry thought leadership positioning to talk about where the industry is moving, trends, so on and so forth, could be another channel that you, another piece of messaging that you can probably leverage through PR. Yeah, I think, with just the basic information, I hope that provides some answer to what you asked, Vasudha. But if you have something as a follow-up question, we'll be more than happy to answer.
So we have another question from Widsi. It says, the question is, could you please give us more insight into the crisis communication and ESG?
Crisis communication, yes, very, very integral actually. And I think I missed talking about that while speaking, though it was there on one of my slides. See, digital has meant a lot more, preparedness for crisis, because, today you could have anyone coming and talking anything and saying anything about you, and it could go viral. So yes, crisis communication means, one, preparedness for it, because we work with many clients in running them through crisis communication training, and also putting together guideline documents internally on how they need to handle a crisis, who are the point of contacts, what should be the first steps when a crisis takes place. We work with a large multi-diversified business group, and they have a number of manufacturing plants and operations here in India. And there was some labor unrest, like it happens in many manufacturing companies. And so, especially when you have a crisis, you need to be there on the ground, and you need to take your steps very measured, because not all the time is it necessary. So while we had our press documents and our statements and all of that prepared internally, immediately run through legal again, all of that was ready, you have to wait and watch whether you really need to communicate, how much you need to communicate, and ensure there is no loopholes for communication to happen by anyone and everyone within the company, right? So internal communication at the moment of a crisis is extremely important, because to keep all stakeholders internally on the same page is like the first step. And then preparedness for how to handle it externally is the second one. And the third one is, of course, going out on the ground if required and handling it as it should be. And again, authenticity plays a very important role there. So, but we need to work closely with the leadership at such times. So yeah, and the first thing that we say to our clients is, don't wait for a crisis to happen to be prepared for crisis communication. That's why we take them through crisis communication modules.
Lovely. We have another question from Krishnan. I'll try to put it together. It says, as you said, PR started as sharing press release a couple of decades back. With media explosion and other new avenues, can you just consolidate the various contemporary elements that could be used for PR exercises?
So, press releases are becoming a thing of the past, because you can put it out and there's some SEO to it, and it doesn't get the kind of pickups that it used to by print, and no one is reading it either. So, but having said that, like I spoke about all the new age platforms that are available, the way you kind of put out content for these, and what is the kind of pitch, we call it pitch, when we try to speak to these, whether it's podcasters or influencers. For example, with influencers, it's very different, right? Because we need to go and see a fit between the brand that we are probably trying to endorse and the values that the influencer is trying to propagate the space that they are in, and what has been their messaging and whether it fits in overall. And then we kind of look at, how to make it interesting without looking at, something like it's a paid thing, just endorsing it, right? So how to kind of have them talk about how they use it, what is their lifestyle, bring it into their own routine, etc. If it's something fitness related or food related, probably, or fashion. So so that's, like I mentioned, content still remains at the core. The format of the content keeps changing. Of course, then you need to also create a lot of video or visual content. Infographics have become a big thing. When you put out a press note, you also try to visualize it so that it becomes interesting for a media house to pick it up. That's really how we go about it. I hope that's answered your question. I was not too sure though.
Sumathi, Mr. Krishnan has also added to his question, how can we measure the reach?
How can we measure reach?
Yeah.
Yeah, so reach on digital, of course, depends on the ranking, the traffic to the website, the search rankings of the news that we put out. It significantly impacts the Google search rankings for the company and the brand over a period of time when you keep doing something. There is more, because many of these digital portals and platforms have a better ranking than what the company puts it out, and it brings in credibility, of course. So there's search rankings, there's traffic, there's the overall domain ranking, and of course, if we have access to the unless it's paid, you do not get backlinks, or you do not get to see the number of impressions for each article. That's anything that's organic, you don't get that number necessarily. But if it is something that's paid in a particular media news portal, then of course you get access to that as well to be able to. If then with the client and company, and that's why I was talking about the convergence, we are driving it back to, let's say, a campaign that they are running and their landing page, and they are able to measure traffic of how many leads they are able to generate out of a particular piece that they have put out. That becomes additional measurement metrics. But without all of this, just organic, if it is not paid, all we can do is that. And if the media house puts it up on their social platform, then additionally, there is a certain reach to that and an engagement to that. If the journalist who writes the story has a large community, again, let's say on a LinkedIn, and puts up the story that he or she has done, and like I was talking earlier of the social newsmakers and all of that, and that gets additional engagement and reach, all of this is cumulative together today, and not just the particular piece that's come out on, let's say, if it's for a startup, if there is a piece on your story, and then the journalist who's written the story, and let's say Shraddha has done the story and she puts it out on her page, and there is a certain reach to that. All of that gets accumulated together.
Right. I think we have one last question from Umanath from Genius for You. The question is, do you think a senior management professional needs personal PR, and how does it benefit him or her in shaping their profile?
Very good question. Thank you. So we actually work with many of our client CEOs, leaders, sometimes just standalone individually with CXOs as well on their branding, because we are in an era of personal branding. There is huge credibility today to individuals and what they have to say and what they have to bring to the table. So whether it is, for starters, just through LinkedIn, the goals for each of this might vary, right? Sometimes it is, if they're in a particular, just to answer your question, if they're the CEO or the CXO of the client organization we are working with, they become an important face for the company and the brand, and they need to be spokesperson trained. And after that, besides media, we need to use their own channels. Like I said, it could be LinkedIn branding to begin with, but it could also mean a lot of thought leadership that we do over a period of time. It could be speaker opportunities, it could be awards and rankings, it could also be, authoring a book and so on and so forth. So there's a lot, it's a distinct area, and there's a lot that we are doing in that area, and it's becoming very important. And yeah, it's interesting actually, because it's completely customized for each person.
Great. Super. So I think we're done with the Q&A session. Thank you so much for answering all the queries patiently, Sumathi. I would like to hand it over to Uma, who is the treasurer of the Advertising Club of Madras and the founding editor of Media News for You, to deliver the thank you note. Over to you, Uma.
Thanks, Suraj, and thank you, Sumathi. That fantastic session, because InsightView series, series after series, we have been introducing our industry to a new kind of unseen knowledge areas, and we always take pride in telling them that we always bring up the best and areas which they are less exposed or need-based. So PR was one area which we haven't touched, even though we have completed nearly 15 sessions. So I'm really delighted, and thanks to Anbu for coming out with the idea of featuring a PR professional. And I'm really happy because particularly this market, when it comes to South regional market, it is known for its subtle behavior in terms of exploiting PR, because even after achieving so many things, they still want to remain an underdog. They don't want to portray themselves. So as a platform or a media news platform which is operating predominantly with the South, we had a very great difficulty in convincing them to speak about their achievement, the organization's achievement itself. So over a period of time, we managed to do that. Now also, even my previous question was literally on that. I wanted to tell the professionals here that you achieve a lot, but you don't boast yourself. You don't position yourself as a professional. So when it comes to today's world of search, it is what they search about you online builds an opinion about you, and that gives you them to shape up a kind of idea on a professional. So it is everyone, they need to come out and speak about organization, and they need to professionally they need to talk, organization wise they need to speak about it. So that change is something that even particularly organizations, agencies in South, they need to do it. I'm advocating about it, and today it is wholeheartedly, I'm happy that you took us through that too in a fast changing world. We take a scenario how it has to be, and took us through the full end of the era of push, and what are the significance of pull, and how PR industry is engaging with social media content creators, so many other things. So I'm really happy you took us through the trends and how you are engaging with social media content creators, newsmakers, influencers, the emergence of podcast as a medium of communication for professionals. So this is, it was a wonderful session, and I'm really happy and thankful to you for sharing your knowledge and time, and looking forward to engaging you in another wonderful session. I would like to.
Hello, Uma, sorry to interrupt you. There was another question.
Yeah.
There was another question from Shushan. We have just started PR in our company. We have done few RBMs with big publication and got few articles published, and there is an agency looking at it. I am managing this. What should I watch out for next, and your advice?
Okay, so we've just started PR in a company. We've done few RBMs with big publications and got few. Okay, and there is a matrix. Okay, all right. Yeah. So I think Sushant, one is the messaging. You need to look out for what is the messaging and whether it's aligned to your business goals. So the process that we always advise to our clients is, okay, well, what are your business goals, and then divide it into your short term. When I say business, business, and then bring it down to therefore the brand goals, and what is short term and what is long term. So your first few, if you've just started campaign, your PR campaign is more meant to address your short term, and it's just going to get more. But again, the messaging is something that you cannot change once it's out there in the public. So I hope you've gone through a good exercise of how you want to position the company. What is it that you want to say? How do you want to differentiate yourself? And, to see whether the stories are bringing these out. Again, to see if the media platforms that you're getting your stories out in is more aligned to your target audience. That could be, for example, if you're targeting investors, then it could be the financial dailies or the startup focus portals or, things like that. But if it is your customer audience, then you need to ask where your customers are really, and see if, it is in those kind of platforms and publications. And last but not the least, again, your messaging cannot become monotonous. So you need to kind of have the holistic messaging, which, brings out different facets of who you are and what you are. So it needs to kind of keep evolving. So for any company to work closely with their agency in creating that content that could continue generating interest, because it's easy in the initial phase, right? There's no one who's aware of you, so you're able to go out and get a few stories out. But as you move along, it gets, once you get the initial stories out, what is it that, how are you going to sustain your communication? Because many companies do the mistake of, doing it either in bits and pieces here and there when they have something, or they just start it and then they stop it and stay quiet. These could sometimes be detrimental. It may not really help you, because it's also seen as a sign of, oh, maybe the company is not really growing after that initial patch, or they remain where they are. So you need to be a little more gradual and then kind of keep building it up, but sustain it and look at all platforms holistically.
Okay, fine. And there is another question from Krishnan. What are the PR agencies exist in Chennai? And I have a quick answer to it, because one of our committee member runs a PR agency, and his name is Ramkumar Singharam. The agency name is Crystal. He is very damn
having
Catalyst.
PR.
Catalyst, sorry.
Name is, but
Yeah,
Catalyst.
almost all leading PR agencies are having their network presence. And moreover, you don't need a Chennai-based PR agency to do your PR in Chennai. You can hire an international agency or a Mumbai-based agency, but how effectively they are able to reach to the medium that you are targeting, that is where the importance is. So people, for a briefing, anyone can fly down or do a Zoom and take the briefing and go ahead. So I think, Sumathi, if I'm not wrong. So,
Yes, you're right. You're right.
Yes. And almost all the leading advertising agencies are having a PR practice also, right?
Correct.
Yeah, so there are a few like, Catalyst and Ramkumar. There are a few who have been there in Chennai for years and who have very strong media networks within the Chennai market. So if you are looking for something, just Chennai specific media relations to begin with, few of these might be like a great start. It also depends, like Umanath was saying, on your geography and markets. So for example, if you need a national reach, then it would be a great idea for you to go with a national firm. And like he said, not many of them might have their presence in Chennai, but they have all the capabilities to kind of deliver the best for you across the markets. I mean, a small plug-in there, but we also work with Chennai-focused firms, but we do not have a presence there. So that is something that you can look at. It depends completely on what your need is. There are a few in Chennai, national firms. I think Ad Factors has a presence in Chennai, and MSL, and probably Perfect Relations. These are names of companies that do have a presence in Chennai as of what I knew
When
last.
GBM is there, and Brandcom, Madison, the PR agency, Brandcom
Yes.
is also.
Yes, Brandcom is also there.
So that's it. Okay. So thank you, Sumathi, once again. It was a wonderful session, and we are delighted that we have touched upon PR, and we will continue to bring in more need-based topics and professionals to add more knowledge to our members and the followers. So thank you once again, and coming to the team, support team, Presto for designing, Media News for the trade support, and Deep Sense for the digital, and the office bearers and EC committee members, whoever has took extra steps towards putting the session together, and Ad Club office, Indra, and team. To all of them, my sincere thanks to. And we will catch up with you with another wonderful session in the fortnight. Until then, signing off. Thank you.
Next
Yes.
session we have it is on 7th of June. We have Mr. Nagaraj from The Hindu, who will be doing a very interesting topic, revolves around artificial intelligence and advertising. So please stay tuned. So please stay tuned to connected with Ad Club, whatever form you are in WhatsApp group or in our Facebook or in LinkedIn. Please stay tuned. You will definitely get the creatives as everything is ready, and please enjoy that program.
Catch you all. Thank you. Signing off.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good
Thank you all
evening.
for
Thank
being
you,
a
Sumathi.
patient audience and listening in on a Friday evening, and for all the questions and the engagement. Thank you to all of you at the Ad Club Madras for making this possible. It was a wonderful session. I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Pleasure. Pleasure.
Thank you.
Bye.